Welcome to Adeptus On-Air, the show where we examine how individuals and companies make decisions that drive their business and personal success. Each week, we connect with notable professionals who pull back the curtain on the industries that Adeptus has been on the cutting edge of for the last 30 years, including music, sports, and entertainment, as well as new emerging markets.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Adeptus On-Air. I am your host, Mike Hoffman, today joined by the Chief Solution Architect of Segwik, Pete Romano. Pete, how are you doing today?
Hey, Mike, it's great to be here with you.
No, I appreciate you taking the time, learning a little bit about yourself before we got on, and it's a pretty interesting trajectory for you, starting in music and film production, and now ultimately in, tech. We'll call it tech entrepreneurship, for lack of a better word. Which we'll get to. Obviously, I want to spend some time talking about that. But give me a little bit of background on yourself and specifically the music and entertainment side of your, I don't want to say previous life, because I know you're still involved in music, but kind of give me a rundown of what's going on.
Well, it's starting to feel like a previous life, but, when people ask, how did I get from that kind of musical creative background to technology, it feels at a glance that it's not a very straight line. It sounds like you can't even connect the two, but I can definitely draw a lot of connections to the values and the skill sets that we draw from now and our early career. When I first I started, if I go all the way back, I still have memories of being in first grade, seeing the elementary school band and a bass drummer just swinging a big mallet at a bass. And I said, I got to do that. And they didn't allow first graders in the band, so I had to wait till third grade to get a drum. And then my parents got me a drum set, and God bless their souls, I got into music and playing bands in the basement. That led into a career. I was an early jingle composer, like on Full House, like those keyboard, computer. Had some hits. You might remember my Sudafed hit, or you might remember this is actually an actual claim to fame, the Budweiser Frogs. Do you remember those?
I do remember the Budweiser Frogs. I do.
We did the sound design, and the company I was working at did the sound design, the sound effects for those. And so
wait, what was the jingle you just mentioned? Let's hear it.
Oh, Sudafed. There was no vocals, but in terms of a vocal song, in terms of a vocal sung, I'll claim this. We did the Viva Viagra. Do people remember that jingle? That was our little, these jingles, they don't emerge out of the agencies. They farm these out to small little music studios all around. It's centered around Chelsea, New York. Between all of the jingles in the world feel like they come out of 20th Street down to the Flatiron in New York City. And there's dozens of music studios in that neighborhood. And the agency people come down from up north, uptown. They come down, they get their sushi, they sit down and they watch you play guitar and go into the studio. And that's them getting out of the office for a little while. And so that was my early career. And
you mentioned the jingles for a second. It's funny because you mentioned Full House. I think to 2.5 Men.
Right.
I don't know if you watched that show with Charlie Sheen, but
yeah,
he wrote children's jingles was his character, and such a funny scene as he's playing at a kid's party that his nephew's at, and no one wants to hear his songs. And then when they found out he was just singing regular songs, and then when they found out he wrote the jingle to like the cereal and this, suddenly 40 kids are just going crazy singing the jingle. So you talk about how the kid doesn't know, the stuff for his history test, but can say every word of every song. I could probably go back to my childhood and I could probably remember lyrics to some of the jingles that are on from the TV commercials.
I love coming up on YouTube and it says commercials from the 80s, commercials from the 70s. I'll sit there and watch 20 minutes of old commercials. And you pick up on these things. I'm from the New York area, and the Crazy Eddie commercials. You remember Crazy Eddie?
His prices are insane.
The prices were insane, and I don't.
They're so low, he's practically giving it all away. Yeah,
and you start to do research now. So I looked him up, and he has a very colored, checkered history. That fella, which I urge your viewers to just do their own research. And check out that fella's history. It's pretty.
But nowadays, with phones and with 5,000 channels, I'm usually not watching commercials.
Right.
I mean, quite honestly, where, if I'm watching something on a regular network, which isn't even that common anymore,
Right.
if I'm DVRing it, I'm going to record through it.
Right.
I'm going to fast forward through it. And if I'm watching it and it's a commercial, I'm probably on my phone checking my email or texting someone or something like that, because like the rest of America, my attention span is a lot worse now since phones came out.
Right.
So I can't tell you the last like current jingle that I still remember.
Well, both of us are getting up there, and we would love to. We could probably remember 100 times thinking, "Well, I'm not going to be that old guy. I'm never going to be the guy that says I remember when."
Yeah.
But when those moments came up when we were younger, when something happened and we said, "Well, I'm never going to be that guy," you don't know what you're going to be that guy about. And so the thing that we're saying that about now, to your point, is there's no mass media anymore. There's never going to be a Michael Jackson anymore. There's never going to be a Beatles anymore. And the same thing, like to your point, is commercials. The same commercial would run and everybody in the country would see it and everybody would hear it 100 times. But media is so subdivided and channeled for everybody's likes. Nobody's getting the same experiences.
I believe there's only, and I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, there's only one day a year that people care about commercials.
Right. Yeah, the Super Bowl. Yeah, is that what you're getting at?
And that's exactly what I'm getting at. And after that, I can't name a commercial besides those, but we'll be in the office the next day. Hey, what'd you think of that commercial? No, that was the funniest commercial. Or who won that? Who won the battle?
They go out of their way to see the commercials during that day, which is interesting. Yeah,
absolutely. So, all right. So that was your initial passion, and more than a passion, obviously it was a career at that point. Continue your connecting the dots.
So so around 2008, the economy started to go bad, and I was feeling really entrepreneurial. I had a friend who was running a business in the Westchester area, and I started to help him out. And I really fell in love and became passionate about small businesses. And he turned me onto this book called the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And so a lot of your listeners probably are familiar with this famous book that talks about what it is that small businesses don't get right about the business that they're in. And I started to fall in love with some of his primary philosophies, which were what a mistake it is that the chef becomes a restaurant owner, that the barber becomes owns a barber business, that the marketer opens up, because you're the technician at that point, but you don't realize that delivering the technical work is completely different than the business that delivers that technical work.
Correct.
And you become lost within the forest that you're in. You don't see your own forest. And so I fell in love with some of those concepts. And his main takeaway is just the systematizing of businesses. So like anybody, I made that mistake. I took my creative skills, working with the best of the best, and started to deliver that service as my own business, and messing up everything and really doing everything wrong. But I was going door to door, taking what I learned for the big guys and delivering it to the small guys. And so we were pretty good at doing websites and videos and whatnot. But I recognized that the better I did my job as a marketer for them, the worse off the business was, in the sense that they didn't have the operational systems in place to accept new leads, and to if 100 people showed up at the door, it would be a catastrophe. And so that's where I started to pivot into the world of CRM, business automation, really running with this concept from the Michael Gerber book that your business should be seen as a set of systems. It's nothing but a set of systems. And I had a little bit of a software background, and I started to really recognize that any business can be boiled down to a software program. You have inputs and you have outputs. You have a framework. It's like an operating system, and the operating system, the framework that your business works is up to you to decide. You have to, that's what being an entrepreneur really is. You have to consciously decide how your systems and how your processes are going to be. So the connection, going back to the creative world, is that you don't fall in love with your first idea. that ideas are really worth nothing, that you might think it's the greatest idea, but your client thinks it's garbage. And so therefore it is garbage. And so you have to iterate and you have to iterate. And so it's really the creative process that has been the common factor between all of these different endeavors, and understanding that just because you have this idea here, maybe you have an idea for a logo or you have an idea for a slogan. Well, test that. You have to test that idea, test that assumption, because maybe that's not really a slogan. Maybe it works better as a jingle lyric, or maybe it works better as just a talking point, or maybe it doesn't work at all. But then it's other takeaways that I think are your audience should know, is that you always have to take that square peg and try it in that round hole. You have to see, well, this idea from this technology company, well, what is the version of that in this nonprofit company? Or take this idea from this construction company, they're doing this. Well, all business is basically the same. Let's take that idea and what does it look like over here? And that's what the creative process is. It's taking elements and your ability to just take an element and try it, or take an element and try it, and rearranging the palette of different things, rearranging the ingredients in all sorts of different ways. And I think that that's the one skill set that has helped me the most, that I don't think most people are exposed to that skill set unless they go through deep creative training.
Well, I think you have to have a certain mentality also to be able to do that. And, you know, I think we talk about people that have that creative brain versus the non-creative. Like, you know, I probably lack the creative. So like me and you are probably very different in that first, you know, in that approach. So what you said makes a lot of sense, but I'm thinking to myself, that's not me, but logically it makes sense. So for me to go into my own business or whatever, well, my background's in business. So I'm a nicer fit for that. The barber that you mentioned, or someone else who's trying to go into business who has no experience, it would be the same thing on the flip side if I decided to go start cutting people's hair.
Sure, but I would say that most people, I hear that a lot. Well, I'm not that creative. Well, creativity isn't just your ability to take a paint and apply it to a canvas. Creativity isn't your ability to pick up a guitar and play it. It's your idea. I don't believe it is, and that's not how I'm using the word. I think it's creativity is in, like, when you're in music school, when you're in photography, the professors tell you, write 100 melodies and just do it, or take 100 pictures, and don't get so engrossed in this, don't get so engrossed in that. And that just teaches you that you have to think on your feet. You have to be flexible. And I think that people diminish themselves when I'm not so creative. Well, people are creative in all sorts of ways that have nothing.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. It's more artistic creativity, meaning
Correct.
I think I have a decent skill set, obviously, when it comes to taxes. That's what I do for a living. So I can be creative in planning a tax strategy for you.
Right.
So to me, my creativity kind of sponges off of my knowledge in that area. So me knowing something allows me to be kind of creative with that.
Right.
I don't know if I have the ability to be creative with something from the outset. And again, I was a musician in high school. You know, I did the band thing, but I was basically, you know, music on paper, play what you see.
Right.
Never would have had the ability to come up with something on my own, or to change a chord, or to, you know, whatever. That wasn't me. I was basically, give me it, I'll learn it, I'll play it.
Well, in your world, in the tax world, I was going to add to what you said, is that I prefer to work within frameworks. I've always been in service of, when I was in a band, I was in service of the songwriter. I wasn't the one writing the lyrics. I would help them, you know, with some chords, and then I would help produce the song. But the vision was theirs, and I was helping turn that vision into something mechanical. And in your world, in the tax world, I like creativity with a framework. And within your industry, if you're doing taxes for a corporation, for an individual, for a nonprofit, you have a very rigid framework that you have to play within the boundaries of the law and within reason. And you know that if you stretch things too far, you could stretch things a little bit. You can figure out how to allocate things in various different ways that are well within the legal boundaries, but you have some flexibility, and so therefore that's
Sure.
your creative way to help get the best outcome for your clients.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. So as we're continuing your path, so now we're doing all this, and now suddenly we find ourselves in the tech world. I don't want to say suddenly, sorry, wrong word. Now we find ourselves in the tech world. So how did we get from now? We started with point A. I think we're now somewhere on point B. How did we get to point C?
I love the methodical thinking here. So, because I have to remind myself too, like, how the hell did I get here?
That's right.
Like, where did things go so
I
wrong?
woke up one day and suddenly I'm in tech. I was making jingles, having a good time.
Well, so I just love small businesses. I love
Mhm.
I love the hardworking community. I love that the mindset behind them. I love the spirit and the small business community. Each individual small business owner, the entrepreneurs, they're hardworking. They wake up earlier than most. They go to sleep early later than most. They have many more stresses on themselves than their W-2 counterparts, and I love that a business is like, it's like if you ever played Dungeons and Dragons, it's not like a 6-sided die or an 8-sided die. Sometimes they have 100-sided dice, and
Right.
your business is, you could look at it from so many different angles. And so when I started to work with this community, I just realized that hey, this community is really outmatched by their corporate competitors. And so in every possible way, where the corporate competitors can hire every type of consultant, they're able to, poach every kind of employee, they have
Yep.
every kind of advantage that they, but those people only know a little thing. They've learned this little thing or that. And if we could take those little things and give them to the small business owner, then it's going to make all the difference in the world. It's going to make the difference between if a small business owner learns something today or implements some kind of technology today, and they're destined to be in business for 20 more years, that new little piece of insight might save them 10,000 hours of their life, where they
Yeah.
playing with their kids, where they could be playing with their dog, where they don't have to be stressed out in front of a computer at the office while their family is home without them. And so I got into technology because I didn't see a solution on the market that was doing that for that community, that was relieving these stresses of the small business community as readily as I thought this kind of technology should be doing that. And so
Interesting.
we built Segwik. And so Segwik is our solution to giving the small business community the digital tools that they need in order to thrive.
So give me an example.
The way I think about it is I try to get our clients to pause what they're doing, because they're doing 100 things at once.
Of
And
course.
at any one moment, it's tax season right now. You have different people.
Unfortunately, yeah.
You have different people you have leads that haven't called you yet, right? You don't even know when they're going to call, so they're
Correct.
pre-meeting. You have people that you've spoken to that are maybe expecting a quote, and you have some people that are early birds. They've gotten you all of their records,
Right.
and you have, it's muddling, it's confusing, it's how do you convey that, how do you make sense of different people at different stages of their customer life cycle. And then in your business, even when you have a client, you have to hunt them down. I need your license, I need your W-2, I need access to your bank account, I need this, I need that. You're placing 10, 20, 30 additional calls to just move this client along. Even after you get the
Yeah.
deposit, it creates a ton of friction in a business.
Yeah.
And so what we try to do is we try to work with a client to say, hey, let's just picture how a single client moves through your processes one step at a time. Okay, well, where do they meet you? Well, I do a lot of networking and I have a website and they call me. Okay, well, let's map that out. Okay, well, if they call, they go to the website and you do networking. Let's just take one of those paths. Well, what happens after they go to the website? Well, they might
Mm-hmm.
call me. Okay, well, let's come back to that. What else do they do? They might fill out a form. Okay, well, what do you want to happen when that form gets filled out? Okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
well, it just gets sent to my Gmail, and then well, does it get buried in your email? Well, sometimes, and so some people get frustrated because they email you a couple times. So how do we fix that? Okay, well, let's make sure that the autoresponder that they get is really elegant and really beautiful. Let's get a nice
Mm-hmm.
marketing message right there, maybe a video into that email. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
great. So now you need to meet with them, right? Okay, well, what happens at that meeting? How do you conduct that meeting? Okay, well, how long is it taking you to make a quote for them? Okay, a
Mm-hmm.
long time. So what if we get all of your products lined up, and what if we get all the prices in here? Okay, great. So now we've got that problem solved. Now, what happens if they don't call you back with the quote? Well, I don't really call them. Yeah, so you basically lose that money because you're not following up. Yeah, probably. So, okay, well, let's get some follow-ups there. So we break down every single step of the
Mm-hmm.
business process, and we identify those moments, and we pull apart the business like it was a piece of software, because if this, then this, if this, then do
Mm-hmm.
this, if this, then do that. And our tool is where you put these business rules. That's what you call them in technology. You put all these business rules, and our tool handles the contact management. It handles the scheduling, the contract management. It handles the project
Mm-hmm.
management, and it helps to keep that process going so that you can now stack 2 customers, 3 customers, 4 customers, 5, and you don't have a scalability problem at that point.
I bet you weren't thinking about that when you were making your jingle.
No, this stuff was as far from Sudafed jingles
Right.
as you could possibly imagine, I think.
Now, where was your educational background? And we kind of skipped over that. Like, what, after high school, did you go to college?
Oh yeah, so I went to a state school up in Westchester called SUNY Purchase. It was
Oh, sure.
we used to say that this was a school for all of the kids that sat alone at their lunch tables in high school.
Nice.
Yeah, and so
Nice.
no sports, just a I think we had a frisbee team, and I think our claim to fame was that the Nets practiced there once.
Oh, there you go. Well, that's on the sign when you drive in.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so, but it
But
was
what did you major in? Like, what did you study?
this was I was fully immersed in music all day long, and so
Wow.
I
Well,
found
good for
myself.
you. Think about that.
Yeah,
That even makes what you do more impressive. How you kind of you basically did a full pivot. I know you kind of made the connection, but let's face it, it's a very you have to justify that in your head. But think about it, you basically formed a successful business with really no educational training. It's all hands-on, real life
I come from
evolution.
we come from a blue collar family. My father
Yeah,
was a firefighter. My mother worked in the school system, and you know
good
they
for you.
had little entrepreneurial endeavors here and there. But they've been supportive. At first, I got a lot of what I started to call well intentioned bad advice, and
Mm-hmm.
so that was prevalent. And you get that from your friends. You get that when you start a business. Um, but they've been
Yeah, but
supportive.
yours is almost the opposite from what's traditional because you hear the stories about the guy that goes to law school or medical school, gets his law degree, and says, "No, I'm going to quit. I'm going to go to a band." So in that case, they did it that way. You kind of did the music thing. Let's face it, a lot of parents aren't necessarily in favor of the music route because that's not a career, that's a hobby, as a lot of people say. And then you went from that, studied that in school, and then you evolved into what I'll call, and no disrespect to anyone in music, we have a lot of music clients, a real job.
Sure, yeah. You know, you could take that up with my folks, and
Yeah,
we can. Only God will be able to tell if it was the right decision or not.
right. Hey, are you happy? You're successful. It's a right decision. So that's how I
Correct.
look at it. I mean, as you're talking, and some people are watching this, but some people are listening, you genuinely are smiling as you're talking about your business.
Do you have
So
people that come on and are just grumpy and just? I imagine some people
there's a
just.
difference between being grumpy and genuinely seeming like excited about what you're talking about. There's definitely a middle ground that a lot of people they lay there. I think when I'm talking about taxes, I
Right.
don't think I'm necessarily going to be smiling during the conversation about taxes. I might be crying,
Right.
but not necessarily smiling. You genuinely seem excited about, that process that you're talking about and what you're giving to the businesses. But I think that stems from how you started the conversation, where I said, "How'd you get here?" And I think the first thing you said to me was, "Well, I generally love small businesses,"
Well,
and that's
correct.
totally conveyed in the way you talk about it.
Yeah, and we're we are business automation artists, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's very much not a boring. I don't find it boring. I find it really invigorating to be able to help other people define what their business looks like. It's like
Right.
I think of a business as being like a house, and it's like we're doing interior decorating. We're decorating the sides of the walls. We're helping to choose the paint
Right.
color or deciding how big the kitchen is, and that's so it's engineering and it's technology and it's business process, but it's very creative what we do, in my opinion.
Well, there you go. And that goes back to you having that creative. So, how would you like to see, I guess, your business and I guess the clients you're working with? Like, what is their, how do you know you've reached the end result? Or is it always an ongoing progression and evolution with them?
If you talk to any software company, there's never so what we're
Mm-hmm.
doing is really delivering off the shelf custom software. It's kind of an
Right.
oxymoron, but so e- every business ought to be in a constant cycle of improvement.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't I don't think that you really reach the end of this process if you're doing it right. You always have to be self-reflecting, and that doesn't mean that we're the
Mm-hmm.
ones that are helping them self-reflect. We work with a client, we set up various systems, we coach them on it, we hand it off like a new baby, and then we make sure that it's up and working for them the whole
Right.
time. And so but our passion is that we have to keep standing behind them and making sure and hey, push them, be better, you can do this, try this, make sure we're setting up reporting, and and
Mm-hmm.
and if they're reading the meters, you basically want to get your business to a point where you could just adjust a meter here and adjust a meter there. And so to make those adjustments, you have to have that information at your disposal.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where we feel we've really delivered the full product, is when they just have this full fluid
Mm-hmm.
control over every aspect of what they're doing.
Yeah. So it's really a trifold I'll call it product, because there's the intangible side, which you're doing consulting,
Hmm.
analyzing the system, coming up with solutions, but then integrating it into this custom made software, which is, I guess, the ultimate. I know software is intangible. I'm saying tangible, but I realize it's wrong. That's the product you're delivering. But along with that, you're consulting them on how to make their business either more efficient or more profitable or whatever, I guess, their objective is. Because a few examples you gave before, some had to deal with profitability,
Right.
some how to deal with customer service or efficiency and so forth. So it's basically a business consulting as well as a software,
Yeah,
function.
well, because though, so this gets into what I think the failures of other companies are that deliver a similar type of technology, is that
Mm-hmm.
their marketing all screams from the heavens that if you just make an account, you're going to have more sales, you're going to have a
Yeah.
better, an easier go of things. Yeah, but what so they sell on that, but the product that they deliver is like an IKEA Acura. It's like here's all of the parts to the Acura, and here's
Mm-hmm.
you can go to this website for the instructions, and here's your Allen wrench to put it all together. And call
Right.
us if you can't figure out how to put the carburetor in with the this and the that. And with my marketing background, and if you were hiring us to shoot a video, we wouldn't show up with the tripod and the camera and park it on your front door, ring the doorbell, and run away. That's what
Sure.
most software companies I feel do. They just say, call us if you have any problems. Here's all of the stuff and good luck. And just make sure that credit card is valid every month. And
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want that kind of company. I want to have companies that are on the tool and really,
Mm-hmm.
really excelling.
So I imagine also a lot of your future business comes from your existing business.
Yeah,
Would that be fair to say?
referrals. And I
Yeah.
another podcaster that I was on recently, she gave me this, and I want to make sure I say it out loud because now I'm going to remember, is that your goal as a business owner is to figure out how to convert every one of your customers into a salesperson.
Yes, that's right. We deal with that here all the time. And, there's one specific example I could give here where, obviously we charge a fee a little different for a tax return. And obviously it's based upon, difficulty, time spent, etc. And there's always the old adage, listen, are you charging enough for some of your returns? Can you charge more? Why are you going to do these few returns at a couple $100 when you could do bigger ones and make a lot more, hourly or however you want to break it down? The one school of thought that always contradicts that is, well, if you get rid of those 40 clients to maybe bring in one client, you've lost 40 potential referral sources.
Right, yeah.
And more times than not, of those 40, 39 of them might never refer something. One might, and it might be, unfortunately, another small little 1040. But we do have one here, and it wasn't me, it was one of my partners who was just doing a tax return for a husband and a wife, got it from the husband. The wife was an administrative assistant at a law firm, was talking to her boss. The boss gave a call here, and now we do 6 figures a year from this client from basically a few $100 1040.
Right.
So that's why, as that last podcaster said, and perfectly well said, my sales force is potentially, in addition to all of my employees here, my 10 or 12,000 clients.
Yeah, and I've studied marketing for more years than I could count now, and there's definitely its place, but all of the marketing in the world is not going to replace the credibility you get when one person says to their trusted colleague that, hey, you really should call that guy.
That's right. That's right. Yep. I literally had a call this morning with a prospective new client. Very nice size engagement, if we get it. And, as we started talking, he flat out said to me, well, these guys recommended you. You're good. You're good to me. You've been with them a long time. You're good to me. So it's like, obviously I want to explain my firm and our process, but I don't have to go into salesman mode at all. Right. I can, I don't have to sell it. Someone did that for me. Someone who doesn't even work here did it for me, and obviously did a great job for that guy to kind of make that comment. So yeah, so those are the best. The best thing is you need to call saying, this person referred us, can you take me on? Not, I'd like to talk to you about a possibility, and it's up to me to say, no, I don't want you, which is obviously for a business owner, the best situation when you're in control over who you want to work with.
Right. Exactly.
Now, when you're early on in your career and early on with a developing business, you don't want to turn down any business. But as you grow, both in age, maturity, your business size, and so forth, that power shifts to you a little bit, and now you are kind of in more control. Where back in the day, anyone who wanted to give you a credit card or a check, you were going to take because you needed that money coming in to keep the doors open.
Yeah, so it's important that businesses recognize that they're going on a journey, and their business goes through stages of being an infant to being an adolescent to being a young person to being an adult, and there's different qualities and different responsibilities and different amounts of grace that the public will allow you and whatnot. And so you're 100% right.
So before we get to the most important question, give us the website of your company and so forth like that. So if anyone wanted to check it out.
If anything, if you liked what you heard out there in this audience and you wanted to check out more about what Segwik does, I would visit segwik.com, segwik.com. Find me on LinkedIn, Pete Romano. Would love to connect with you.
Perfect. There you go. All right, now to the important stuff. We talked about business. Let's get back to the jingles for a second. From memory, we're about the same age. I'll ask you, how old are you?
44.
All right, so we're not the same age. Okay, so I'm a little older. All right, mine perhaps doesn't start with a 4. We'll just leave it at that. Flashbacks to your childhood. Tell me some of your favorite jingles you remember from TV.
Oh man. So as you were asking me that question, for some reason, He-Man came into the cartoon. Some of these early cartoon.
Oh, that's more theme song though, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we can do theme songs too. I'll talk theme songs with you.
We could do theme songs. The Heathcliff one comes to mind.
Okay.
But here's a jingle. Here's a jingle that always pops in. It's the Double Mint Gum.
Okay.
Right? That's one. What else? The Double Mint Gum, or there's just the phrases. Where's the beef? That wasn't necessarily.
I have 4 things written down here. Where's the beef is one of them.
Right.
Sometimes you feel like a nut. Sometimes you don't. For almond joys.
Yeah. The Coca-Cola.
That one came to mind.
The Coca-Cola where everybody's singing on top of the world. And
yeah. And the other one, which might be one of my favorites, is 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. Why I still remember that, because that's a hard one. So the fact that that stuck in my head 40 years ago, and I think it's Burger King. That's the funny thing. I'm not even positive whose it was.
Right.
I just,
the jingle is lodged in your head.
The jingle's lie, yeah.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
The power of this and the testament to the, I don't know, just the psychology and the, if you want to take over and be a worm in people's minds, you can. It's possible to just get in there. Yeah.
Yeah. And now, are you still in the New York area?
Yes. Yeah.
So the only one that comes to mind now, and like I said, it's more from like radios of driving home. There's one jingle that I probably hear 3-4 times a week, but I could wake up singing it. And that's for a charity called Cars for Kids.
Oh, no, don't even get there. That one is...
So it's brilliant.
What an earworm
it's brilliant.
That one is.
I know the phone number. You know the phone number.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, yeah. You're going to have to edit that in for your listeners so that they could enjoy having that jingle just stuck.
There you go. All these jingles, I think Michelle's got a lot of work to do now because I expect all this stuff to be part of this now.
You're gonna have to link them in the description here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so so jingles definitely play a big part. And I'll end it with this 4th grade chorus. When you were in 4th grade, everyone had to be in chorus. Like you didn't have a choice at that point. So we're all in chorus and we have our assembly. And the first song we did was called Commercials. And you have this little thing you sing at the first, and then basically you go into 5 or 6 different jingles. And that was the song. So it started off with Plop, Plop, Fizz, Fizz.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I wish I were an Oscar Mayer wiener. And then the Almond Joy one, I just thought sometimes you feel like a nut. And I forget the others, but that was actually the song. You went from one to the other, and that's what we sang.
That's great.
Now, I can't tell you any other song we sang at that assembly, but I can remember that song. Again, it's just the power of a good jingle.
The power, and it's a lost art, and it's a shame.
Yeah, it really is. And the ironic thing is, so I mentioned to you the Burger King one, which I didn't count words, is probably 25 words.
Right.
Then Coke is it, or Be Like Mike.
Right. These, yeah,
just as powerful as the 25. So it's amazing how there's no rule to it. It's just,
or just do it, or be different.
Just do it.
Yeah. And it's just the power of branding, and these companies are able to it's positioning, it's branding, it's psychology, and again, getting into these companies that came up with this, that have that ability to get into your ear. Local businesses from time to time tap into that on a local level if they're really clever.
Yeah.
And so that's why I just urge if the listeners of this podcast have any takeaways, is just try to think of your business. What would it be doing if it was one of these larger companies? What would we feel like? What would we sound like? What would be our jingle? Because why explore that? I bet just from this podcast alone, at least one person that's in this audience is going to be like, I'm going to think about this. And they're going to go and they're going to contact their guitar playing buddy. They're going to make a little jingle for their business, and it's going to put their business in another direction.
So now my accounting firm here, we need a jingle. All right, I'm on it.
There you go.
We're going to make a jingle. You see, we learned something today. We're going to start working on that right now.
What rhymes with Adeptus?
Yeah, good luck with that one. I think we're already screwed. Jingle idea over right then and there. Yeah.
Got to get creative.
But Pete, I appreciate you taking the time. I've enjoyed talking to you. Real interesting journey. Company sounds like something that provides a lot of great stuff. So hopefully you get something out of this podcast, and I'm sure my listeners will as well. So I appreciate the time, and look forward to seeing you down the road.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Adeptus On-Air. If you like this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. If you have a question related to this episode or have a request for what you would like to hear, please email us at marketing@adeptuscpas.com. You can also find us at adeptuscpas.com online or follow us at Adeptus on social media. The views and opinions by the podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Adeptus. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice.